Hello, welcome to this video on lesson 8.2. We're talking today about how to write the equation of and also how to graph a perpendicular bisector in the coordinate plane. This is actually a do now that we did in class on Thursday and Friday, May 13th and 14th. And the first thing I asked everybody to do was to find the length of this line, and that's actually a review from another video we learned about the distance formula. And the distance formula right here is a way to just calculate the two sides of a right triangle, because what we really do with the distance formula, as you probably saw in another video, is we create a right triangle in the coordinate plane, and then we use the Pythagorean theorem, which says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And it's just that in this case, a and b are the rise and the run of the line segment. And so you can see that the rise is -6 and the run is +8, and that's important for something coming up. But that means that if I wanted to find the length of this, I could use the distance formula. In fact, well, I'll just do that. The distance is equal to we're really using the run as a, and so I'm going to do x2 minus x1, so that's 5 take away -3, and then I would square that because it's a squared, and then I'll do the same thing with the rise, which is -6, and so that would be let's see here. I guess it's this -1 take away this 5, and so -1 minus 5 squared, and then you just kind of simplify things, and that's of course 8 squared plus -6 squared. But the negative sign is okay because a negative squared is a positive, so that's 64 plus 36, or 100. And so it turns out that the distance is equal to the square root of 100, which is 10, right? So that has a length of 10 units. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk, or the main things that I want to talk about, though, are these three things here, which is how do you find the midpoint? And so this is called the midpoint formula. And it really just is, it's about finding formula. It's about finding the, let's try that again, the point that's in the middle. And so notice that this means the x of the middle and the y of the middle, right? The middle x and the middle y. And what I need to do is basically find the average of the endpoints. And so, you can actually do it if you have a graph. You can just pretty much tell by looking where the midpoint is. But if you want to use the midpoint formula, you add the two x coordinates together, so -3 plus 5, and then divide that by 2. And then you do the same thing with the y coordinates. So 5 plus -1, so 5 plus -1, and divide that by 2, which is -3 and 5 is 2 divided by 2, and 5 and -1 is 4 divided by 2, or you can see it's 1, 2. And there's the coordinates of the midpoint right there. And the reason that we need to know the midpoint is because I want the line that we make to be both perpendicular and to be a bisector. And the bisector part means it goes through the midpoint. And so I need those coordinates because I know that the line that I'm going to graph has to go through those coordinates. So when I write the equation of the line, I need a point because we're going to write it in point-slope form. In fact, I'm gonna kind of skip ahead here, and I'm going to write out this point-slope form. And in order to write the equation of the line that is a perpendicular bisector, it's going to go approximately like this. It's going to go through the midpoint. It's going to make a right angle. It's going to make like a T or an L shape. But I need to know the slope still. We haven't got there yet. But I do know that it's going to go through the point 1, 2. So I'm just going to replace that x with the number 1. And I'm going to replace the y1 here with the number 2, because those are the coordinates of the midpoint. And I got those by using the midpoint formula by using those two numbers, but I've ensured that I am going to bisect the segment that is already there. So then the other thing is, it says, what's the slope that's perpendicular to AB? And we remember that it's this thing called a negative reciprocal. But first, I need to know the slope of AB itself, right? And so the slope of AB, I'll just denote it as M sub AB, is rise over run, which in our case, we have -6 over 8, all right? -6 over 8. And as you've heard me say in class many times, always reduce a fraction. So that's -3/4. So the slope of AB is -3/4, but that is not the slope that's perpendicular. We need to find the negative reciprocal. So the perpendicular slope, the one that I'm actually looking for, is you take the slope of AB, -3/4, since it's negative, right, since it's going downhill, the new one has to go uphill, so it'll be positive. And it's a reciprocal. So instead of 3/4, it's 4/3. And so that is the reciprocal slope that we're going to use, 4/3. And that's the number that I'm going to replace here with m. And that was ultimately what I asked everybody to do on the do now, is to come up with the equation that's a perpendicular slope and it goes through the midpoint. And then just so you can see, you can graph it as well. If you start at this point, 1, 2, and if you go up 4 and over 3, or if you go down 4 and back 3, you can see that these points, when I line them up and make a line like so, it goes through the midpoint. So these two segments are congruent. So it's a bisector, and it is perpendicular. It makes a right angle. So I've graphed a perpendicular bisector. And then you should try the assignment that I made to go along with that. I'll post it on Schoology as well. See you next time.